We welcome in our insider from the Insiders, our man James Ham. James, are you riding high after the win last night, or are you even keel? Bill Belichick. Oh, we got to talk about that tomorrow. That was a wild
I didn't
story
even
this
see what.
morning. The
Where?
Bill Belichick
Yeah,
story.
no, I don't know.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Football
there's
makes its
there's
return to
there's
D'Lo and
there's
JC.
stories out there. Well, I mean, we got a day between games. Like we might be able to fit that in. James, are
College
you
football playoff expansion tomorrow.
one day? One day. James, are you riding high or are you on to New Orleans?
No, I am riding high. I think that there's good reason to be positive. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win tomorrow or not, or whatever on Friday or not. I have no idea what's going to happen. And if I tried to tell you that I knew what was going to happen with this team, I'd be lying to you. And I don't do that. So, but I think there's so many good things that came out of that game that you just can point to moving forward and say, look, that happened. And for starters, Keegan Murray became a star, like right in front of our eyes. Just that's who everybody's been waiting for, and boom, he does it. He's got to figure out how to do that more often, but to have him do it on that stage under those circumstances was like, okay, that is a really, really good sign for the Sacramento Kings moving forward. But the other one is Keon Ellis. Like, I've been waiting for a moment. Like, I'm pretty sure I had been pretty sure that, look, I think he's earned a starting job next season, and he's at least earned the opportunity to have that role, or maybe like be in a really good competition for that starting job. But you walk into a game like that as a guy who converted as a two-way player midway through the season, and you put up 15 points and 5 assists and 4 rebounds and 3 blocks and 3 steals, and you just take it to one of the greatest players of all time and Steph Curry. Like, that was so incredibly impressive, and something that realistically, I think it changes. You talk about moments that change somebody's ceiling. We had it with him with the 26 point performance where he hits 8 threes, but this was on a different level. I mean, when you have a player who comes into, again, a high pressure situation and nothing bothers him and he just goes to work, that's why I think Kings fans should be riding high. Whatever happens on Friday, you learn some new things about your team in a huge game.
Yeah, James, I'm kind of with you. I asked the question earlier, and I'll ask it to you as well, or just kind of brought up the statement. I guess it wasn't as much of a question, but win or lose tomorrow, it feels like there is something positive to take out of what they found out, I believe, and what they put together right now. Because I think right now, with Keon Ellis being in the fold, whatever is going on with Davion Mitchell and getting him to play a certain type of way, De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray, I think navigating through all this has allowed Mike Brown to find the type to finally mold the type of team that he wants. A tough, physical, defensive team, not just ignoring offense, but a team that is tough and physical and versatile on the defensive end. And I think they've established that. They didn't have this type of identity maybe 3-4 months ago. I think they have it now, and I think it's going to stay with them. That's more of a Mike Brown type of team. And now you've established that come hell or high water this year. And now you work around that when you're trying to build this team in the offseason. But they were able to get to this point that they weren't at, I don't think, 2-3 months ago. And I think that's a positive to take away, regardless of what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to what Mike has been saying the whole time, that, like, look, he's not here to win a playoff game or to have a 48 win season or 46 win season. He's here in Sacramento to try to win a championship. And in order to win a championship, you have to actually play defense. And it's something that, again, I think everybody loves the fun, running up and down, scoring, frenetic pace Sacramento Kings, but there's got to be some sort of substance to who you are. And that's what Mike has been searching for. It's sort of the substance. Like, you have to have something more. and all of a sudden the light bulb has gone off on this team. And let's not part of the light bulb going off is Keon Ellis. Like a change in the starting lineup that makes you just a better defensive team, and like one player can make a huge difference. And then I think people feed off of his energy as well because he's a high energy type player. And so, like, look, I don't know where this leads, and but I will tell you that Mike has been telling us the whole time that in order for us to take this next leap, it has to be on the defensive end. And
Mm.
now we're starting to see what he's talking about. Not that I didn't believe him or anything else, but I think when you look at some of the other teams out there, even like the Golden State Warriors, who they faced last night, like the Warriors couldn't play defense like the Kings could play defense last night. And like maybe that's an aberration. Maybe they just had a really bad game. But the fact that they turned the ball over so many times was because the Kings were all over them. Like where they have 17 turnovers, and of those 17, 10 of them were steals. And
Mm.
so that's a big deal. And how many deflections did we see from the Kings last night? Like the way they played last night, if they play that way on Friday, they will win. And if they play that way, if they win on Friday and they play that way next week, that is going to be one hell of a 7-game series against Oklahoma City Thunder. So, and that's
Mm.
what, again, it's what Mike has been building towards the whole year. It's playoff defense.
And you think they got that figured out? You think they got the
I
yeah, well, I'll keep that term. You think they got the playoff defense part of this figured out?
I think they understand it. Like
Because
whether
to
they can
me,
match
like
it again.
yeah, but they were really good defensively, and that can't be taken away. Like, we could talk about Clay and Steph, but it's also an equal portion of they shot 46% from 3. Like, they hit 18 of 39, and they didn't put up, like, a mind-numbing number of points last night, but it felt like they'd been stuck, with the exception of the Blazers game, at 107 forever. Yeah, they got to 118, which is above the threshold we always set to where the Kings are winning games if they get to this number. They got above that number last night. So it was like, Hammer, I can't. Did the defense create the offense? Was a combination of the defense and the offense? Did did the and this is what I often wonder. Did the shots falling motivate them on the defensive end? Because we always talk about them doing something on the defensive end, motivating them on the offensive end, or potentially leading to points. Sometimes I wonder if it's the other way around, and Keon's getting those shots to drop. Domas is aggressive early. Keegan, obviously, ridiculous yesterday. Did
Mhm.
that lead to what we saw on the defensive end?
Yeah, I'm not sure what feeds
And I don't
what.
expect you
Like,
to know the answer to that, by the way.
yeah, but I would tell you that they have so many fast break points early on, and that was because of the defense. I mean, Keon getting steal after steal, that play where Fox just chased uh, Wiggins around a screen and then picked his pocket and went down and dunked. Again, Keon one-on-one against Steph Curry just picks him clean and goes down for a bucket. Like those are things that this team should be able to do because they're long, they're athletic at the guard position. They have speed and quickness at the guard position. Not so much at the 3 and the 4 or the 5, but that front line, I think what they've all of a sudden they've developed is a really strong defensive identity, whether it's again like Keon, De'Aaron, Davion, even when Malik is in the game, he's a gambler and he comes away with big time steals all the time. So I think that the defense is what fueled everything, but I also will tell you that all day long and the day before, all they talked about was physicality. Like, we're gonna come in there, we're going to be physical, that's what we're gonna do. And that's what I felt. Like while you were watching that game, it's not like they were pushing people. It's that they were the ones to every 50-50 ball. They were the ones that were getting to all the rebounds. They were getting so many second chance points. They just out hustled, outworked, and out physicaled a team that, is typically the one that pushes them around. So, like, lots to be excited about with that. It's just, can you bottle it and can you take it into the next game? Can you bottle it? Can you take it into a series? And can you have everybody step up? And that's, I guess what you're saying, like, you hit all these threes, But look at how they got those threes. They got those threes because they were in transition all the time. They had the Warriors defense chasing them at all times because of the transition. And then they got a bunch of wide open looks. Like the Warriors were not they were not ready for Keegan Murray to come out firing. They weren't
Mm.
ready, even just the way that they set up their defense, they weren't ready for Keegan. They weren't ready for Keon Ellis to be a player. They weren't even ready. It didn't seem like when Harrison Barnes decided he was going to take over the game, they weren't ready for that either. So maybe it was the Warriors, but I definitely think that it's something that you've got to try to repeat because that is the winning formula right there. You just saw it.
Well, talking a little bit about that game again last night, I do feel like because we've covered it from a number of different angles, but man, maybe some flowers or specific flowers are in order, man. Because I don't think we've really, at least on this show, we've really dove into what Keegan Murray did last night. You know,
Mm.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Keegan was
That's a fair point.
phenomenal, man. 32 points, 9 rebounds on the night as well, guarding Steph Curry.
Yeah.
8 threes. I mean, it felt like every time it was time for a big three or something got kicked out to him or whatever, he knocked down the three, and he'd advance lead from 4 to 7 or from 9 to 12 or something like that. He was so good. And I talked to him on the handoff about it. This felt like it might have been one of those moments where we could all take a excel when it comes to Keegan Murray and say,
Mm.
nah, he's who we hoped he was. He's going to be what we hoped he was going to be.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that that's what so many people came away with after that game. It's like, okay. Like, and to have Keegan have like the mindset that he came into that game, he was hunting shots. And we haven't seen him do that. We saw it in the Utah game where he went for 47, just flat out hunting. And for him to take 10 shots in the first quarter, that was just as big as how many shots he hit. That's what you have to have from him. And again, I thought the Warriors were totally caught off guard by it. There was a moment where like someone ran out on him on a three and he blew right by him and went for like a high arcing shot off the glass. There was just he kept showing more and more wrinkles to his game. And I think everyone was super happy for him, but they also sensed what was happening and they fed him. Again, for some reason, the Warriors didn't make any adjustments at all when it came to Keegan. And for that matter, all they did to me, I like Steve Kerr. I respect Steve Kerr. I think he's a great coach. I mean, surefire, first ballot Hall of Famer coach. But his decisions in that game were just baffling. Every time Moses Moody started doing something, he'd pull him and go
Mm.
back to Clay. And it just didn't make any sense. And, we had conversations all around like, why does he keep doing this? And like sitting by Slater, he goes like, look, man, the guy won you 4 championships. It's like, yeah, but he ain't winning you a fifth. That 4 championships are nice. You got those rings in a safe somewhere. But I just thought the coaching from the other side, they didn't adapt at all to what Keegan was doing. They didn't adapt at all to, they seemed like they were so hyper focused on trying to slow down Sabonis and maybe limit Fox a little bit that they just let everybody else kind of have their way.
Almost felt like they didn't know who Keon Ellis was either.
Man, they were as confused as the TNT crew was. Felt like Steve was searching last night. Hammer, he was doing what Mike Brown does when Kobe Jones is playing, or Chris Duarte. With all due respect to those brothers, like sometimes when you see them go in games, Mike is looking for something. One thing that I think Mike does really well, though, and this is what you were talking about with Moses Moody, is sometimes when Mike finds something, he stays with it. And sometimes that's the detriment to someone else's ego. But that's essentially how he got Keon Ellis into the position that he is. We've talked as the season was concluding, how so many of the Kings' year-long frustrations are just manifesting themselves in the final week, from three-point defense to free throws to whatever. I felt like it was Steve last night. Like, how often have we heard Warriors fans? How often have we heard, Bonte and the people who cover the Warriors on a day in, day out basis talk about that was the thing with Klay Thompson and Kuminga, right? Like, why does he continue to go back to Klay? That was the question last night. It just wasn't Jonathan Kuminga this time.
Mhm.
It was Moses Moody, and everything. And it's like we talk about all the time how things just wind up working themselves out, right? That was the story of the Warriors' entire season. It all took place last night in the confines of a 48-minute game, where if Steph can't be Steph, you can't win.
Yeah, and let's be honest, Steph wasn't Steph because the Kings took away so much. That wasn't just Steph having a bad shooting night. Steph couldn't
Yeah,
shoot. He couldn't get
No.
a shot off because they were right there. Like everywhere he went, they were tracking him. Even late in the game, I think Sabonis picked up his fourth foul, fourth or fifth, defending Steph going to the basket. Like every single person on that team was so locked in at stopping him and not letting him have that moment. And then what you had was a bunch of other guys. Like first of all, like Clay couldn't hit a shot, so we can just like whatever happened to Clay. It's happened before. We saw it last year in Game 6 and Game 7. Yeah, he just absolutely forgot how to play basketball last night. But the other guys that they're trying to rely on, they're not reliable players. Like as far as an offensive weapon, Draymond Green, like he came out, he hit a three in the first like 5 seconds of the game, 10 seconds of the game. He finishes
yeah.
with 12
Can't lie,
points.
that made me a little
I said,
nervous.
"Wait a minute."
Yeah.
That made me a little
No,
nervous.
I
Then he
totally
hits
agree. Yeah. But the problem that you have is that the same goes for Wiggins. You can't depend on Wiggins at all. Like depending on Wiggins, like, you know, banking on Harrison Barnes scoring 17 points. Like it's just you can't bank on it at all. And then on top of that, the way that Kaminga scores, or at least the way that he scored last night, it just felt so like it wasn't dangerous. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't matter how many mid-range jump shots he has go in that are off balance and weird. You just didn't fear it. Like if he's like spin move, and hammering on somebody, and he does that once or twice, or and then all of a sudden they get him in a couple of like alley oop situations and pick roll situations, and he's just going off, and you're like, how do we stop this kid? That's one thing, but that's not how he was scoring last night. What he was doing is like these really awkward and almost like Sabonis kept backing off of him. And again, it just felt like it wasn't sustainable. And that's where I think most of what the Warriors did all night long felt like it was okay, like what here is sustainable that you're doing that could possibly make you think you can climb out of a giant hole that they dug for themselves.
Nah, it's interesting you say that, Ham, because I feel the same way about Kaminga. Very talented, future is bright, but I don't feel like he's somebody that you would build your franchise around. And I'm watching the game last night, and he's going to work. He's getting buckets on Sabonis, but I was like, okay, that's to me. I guess the outlook was that's one less possession where Steph could get a three, a backbreaking
Mm.
three. Like Kaminga's not going to beat the Kings tonight. He may have 25. It's not going to beat the Kings. And I'm not going to say like I was okay with him making shots, but I never felt like the Kings were in danger because Kaminga was getting shots.
Yeah, again, go ahead and shoot. If that's how you're going to beat the Kings, and again, the Kings were trading baskets. Number one, that the Warriors got to a point where they're down 15 and they're trading baskets. They weren't stopping anybody. But also a lot of their stuff wasn't sustainable, and the Kings were shooting and hitting threes, and they're shooting and hitting wide open threes. Like I think maybe Keon had one where it was like, holy cow, where did that come from? And even like the Kings didn't play a mistake-free game, but you can almost remember every mistake. And like the Alex Len mistake, which ends up being like a flagrant foul and three free throws, and even then they didn't capitalize. They hit one out of two on free throws, and then I don't think they scored after they got the ball back.
Mm-mm.
So there was all this like momentum for the Kings that was positive, and very few like just horrible mistakes. And that's where like I think that Golden State just they made a ton, and the Kings forced them into a ton. I mean, even though like the one play where um, Chris Paul just bounces the ball right into the first row. Like, what are you doing? Like, it didn't make any sense. And then you you watch Keon Ellis, you're like, huh, look at that. Keon Ellis is in a two-man game with Sabonis. Oh, there he goes. He's going up the right side. Oh, wait, did he just throw the ball behind his back right to Sabonis? Like the whole time we're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I thought that was the fun part of it, is that you're seeing some of these guys start to like get comfortable and start to show more and more and more of who they are. And that's man, Keon Ellis. Man, he's got all kinds of game that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Well, continue to sing the praises of Keon if you want to, because the TNT crew was baffled at who this young man was playing so well for the Sacramento Kings. They knew the story. They knew Kevin Huerter wasn't playing. They spoke a lot more about Malik Monk not playing than they did Kevin Huerter, but they seemed genuinely baffled by the way Keon Ellis was playing and how last night felt like a coming out party for him.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the Kings have been on national television a lot, even in the second half of the season when
I
Keon's
think
played
with
live.
this same crew as well.
Yeah, that's their
Which
that's their crew.
which is what made it a little
Ye-
bit more perplexing.
Yeah, you had plenty of opportunity to actually watch him, but I'd also say, like, look, like the coverage of the team isn't as robust as it was in the past, and the fact is that you can get national guys in here to write some big stories about Malik winning six man of the year or Sabonis or Fox, but there's by the time you get to Keon Ellis, there's no one writing that story, and and that's a problem. And so I want to just blame it all on them for not doing their homework, but like, who are they reading that's written the definitive work on Keon Ellis? And what, I got a one-on-one with him like a couple of weeks ago, and we had a good conversation, and you write some stuff there, but like there's not that much to go off of. And even Fox, like in the middle of his conversation last night, we were asking about Keon and how well he's playing and all that, how he stepped up. And he just threw it out there. Yeah, just could you imagine playing against him and Herb Jones on Alabama?
Mhm.
And I think everyone's like, "Oh, man, I forgot those 2 played together," like,
Yeah.
and that's something that's, I think it's just kind of the way it's going right now in Sacramento, and you gotta find a way to get the coverage up there, and, clearly they should be listening to our show and your
Yes.
show.
Yes.
Everybody
That's
should.
that would help them, but at the same time, like, so many people are used to doing their homework off the written word, and when it's not there, uh, it's a bummer. They're not looking on YouTube to find clips. At least I don't think Stan Van Gundy is, to find clips that I've put up of Keon Ellis talking after practice.
Hmm. By the way, I heard Hammer on Inside the NBA yesterday. He asked Keegan a question. I was like, look, that's James Ham. Shout out to James.
Mhm.
Um,
I
real
do that
quick,
sometimes.
yeah, real quick, couple of, different bouquet of flowers, before everything's all said and done. We mentioned when he does nothing,
Well,
and we,
some of
hammer that story for
well,
4 hours.
some of us do.
Harrison Barnes was really big, especially late in the second half yesterday. 17 points, 4 rebounds for Harrison Barnes last night. He was 3 of 4 from beyond the arc, 5 of 11 from the field. Like I said, timely. He ate all 4 of his free throws. He was really good last night. I love the way he played. I love that for him. Obviously, going against the Warriors, being able to knock that team out in their season has got to feel good for him. And also the other one, nobody really mentions it because Kings didn't lose, I guess, and doesn't necessarily fit the narrative. But Domas, just the Domas game, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, almost another triple double,
Yeah.
and no mention from Kevin O'Connell or anybody else.
I don't think we mentioned Domantas Sabonis' name once today.
I don't think so either.
You know
Kevin
what, though?
O'Connell was moved by Keon, though.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad to see that he's finally watched a game. Um, when it comes to Domas, like, first of all, like, Harrison Barnes had a good game. He had a really rough start to the game where he kept trying to take people off the dribble and throw like
Yeah.
weird shots, like off the glass that did not work. But there was a moment where I'm writing my 6 quick thoughts, and I had even Steven, because there was a moment where both Wiggins and Barnes were stuck at 8 points and 3 rebounds and 2 assists, both of them. And that's kind of like, hey, like, if you can be even Steven with Wiggins coming out of this game with Harrison Barnes, it's probably a good thing. I mean, that means that he didn't go crazy like we've seen him do in the past, although I don't know that he's capable of doing that anymore. Um, but the fact that Harrison then like hit the nitro button and finished that team, I thought number one, it's a great thing for him to sort of exercise the demons because no one feels worse than Harrison about missing the 3 in game 4 last year. No one. And so for him to get that moment where he's part of the reason why they put them away, I thought that was huge for him. But with Domas, I think we should all look at his numbers from last night. Yeah, do you want him to make 1 or 2 more buckets? Sure. But that's kind of if you've got Keegan going for 20 field goal attempts and you've got Harrison, you've got 25 out of Davion Mitchell I mean, not Davion, out of De'Aaron Fox, and you got 11 shots out of Harrison Barnes and 8 or 9 out of Keon Ellis. I think that's the type of game that this team can be really successful. You know, a 16 point, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 18-point game from Domas, where he doesn't have to carry all of that offensive like scoring punch as long as everybody else is kicking in.
Well, the guy is getting black eyes during the
No,
game.
this is not a lie.
He 7 of 14 is 50% from that's just like a bordering on inefficient night for Domas.
Yeah.
Like it's 14 shots. Normally you'd be probably in the 20-point range.
Mhm.
I mean, he's at 16, but I mean, we're talking difference of 4 points. That 20 is a big barometer for some of these national media writers. But yeah, I
Only
thought
2
Domas,
field goal or free throws last night in that physical game.
1 black eye, 2 free throws, huh? Okay.
In that physical game, only 2 free throws for him.
Yeah, that's the new code word for referees just not calling fouls is, this game's physical.
Well,
Domas
they
over
had
there, arm's been ripped off. This is insane.
they threw every look under the sun at him. You know, they started with the young kid. Why am I drawing blank? Trace Jackson Davis. You know, they went to Looney. They tried to go small. I thought the only one who played it
Draymond.
well was Draymond. He's the
Mhm.
only one who played
Draymond
him
did
all that
exactly
well.
what we said he would do. Draymond did exactly what we all said he would do.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of those 7 misses came from. Is he'd be a little bit away from the rim and Draymond would let him have it and he'd shoot it.
And he did, to Domas's credit. He shot it. You know,
Yeah,
and
it was what you want
whatever,
because he can hit that. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I want. 10 times out of 10 from Domas. James, we obviously have a lot of time to talk about this before Friday at 6:30, but what has to be different going into Friday, or what has to be different Friday at 6:30?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know if you guys heard, but Zion's not playing. Also,
Zion,
yeah.
as Mitch New Jersey calls him.
Brandon Ingram doesn't look like Brandon Ingram right now. Alvarado rolled his ankle, and who knows what's going to happen with him. Like, that's a team that's beat up, but they also have the length, the athleticism, everything that messes with the Kings. And the last time these two teams played and Zion didn't play, they beat the Kings by like 33. You just have to forget the previous 5 games and go in there, and if you play exactly like you did this last game, you should be in that game and you have a very good chance to beat them. They've got all kinds of really solid players, but it's going to come down to who the Kings are, not who they are.
All right. We've got plenty of time to talk about that game coming up on Friday. We got the